The new Ninja 1100 SX, bigger engine than before, less power. New Ninja 500, bigger engine, same power as the 400. Ducati's new V2s, smaller engine and 35 less horsepower than its predecessor. Or what about Harley's famous new Sportster? How does that sound? Ugh. Have you noticed the trend with the newer motorcycles coming out today? It seems like every manufacturer out there is reining it in when it comes to overall craziness and peak power. Bikes coming out today just aren't as loud or as overall crazy as they once were, and today we're going to have a look at why. Sure, they're still bringing out big bad bikes, but overall the push for power has definitely slowed down. Now there are some notable exceptions, but overall today's motorcycles just seem to be a bit more tame, a bit more refined, and overall just less bonkers. There are a couple of factors as to why this is happening, but the main one is down to the new emissions standards. You've probably heard of the Euro emission standards and how today's motorcycles are meeting them, but what exactly are they? Well, the Euro standards are a series of progressively stricter regulations that limit the amount of pollutants road vehicles can emit. Basically an effort to reduce pollution and help make the air cleaner to help save the polar bears. They first started being introduced back in 1999 with Euro 1, and each subsequent iteration, the 2, 3, 4, etc., have further tightened the noose on those emissions. The Euro 5 standards came into effect back in 2020, which is when we last saw a range of updated bikes come out. And now today, in 2024, we are seeing the Euro 6 standards. And again, the bike makers are responding with updates. Now at this stage you might be thinking, okay, well that's for Europe, why should that affect me? Well, those regulations are fast becoming an industry standard, and other nations like India, China and Japan have aligned their legislation to match. And guess where majority of our bikes are made or imported from? Even in places like the US, which has its own emissions laws and limits, they are affected too, because bike firms design their machines with those EU standards in mind and then modify them where necessary to suit the US laws. The Euro 5 and now 6 standards play a huge role in lots of different areas of a bike's development. The big and obvious ones are how dirty the engine runs, how many pollutants are filtered and then pumped from the exhaust, and even the overall weight of those components. This means that new generation motorcycles have engines that are designed to be more efficient rather than more powerful, and exhaust systems which filter out as much bad stuff as possible. And unfortunately, to have a loud, juicy exhaust, that means burning more fuel, which means more exhaust and less ice for the bears. So new motorcycles have to be tested for how many emissions they would emit in lots of different scenarios, like urban riding, highway cruising, and under heavy acceleration. The exhaust fumes are captured to measure all sorts of different things, like carbon monoxide and hydrocarbons, and they even measure the fuel vapors escaping a motorcycle's fueling system. With the Euro 5 standards, they have mandated there be onboard diagnostic systems that continuously monitors the engine and emission control components, and they have to be shown to be reliable over a bike's extended life cycle. These standards are very strict, and because motorcycles usually have smaller, higher revving engines, it really puts a stranglehold on what they're allowed to do. And if a manufacturer doesn't meet them, it means your bike can't be sold. This is why it's especially prevalent in the higher CC supersports to see the newer generations having smarter, but overall less powerful engines inside. Now, obviously motorcycle manufacturers want to keep selling their bikes, so they have to get creative in ways to make their motorcycles more appealing to the public. And a way that they've been doing it lately is by making them more livable. Gone are the days where we see motorcycles pushing for greater and greater numbers. Now it's all about how accessible the power is and how comfortable it is to ride. They tweak their engines to produce a more linear, torquier power delivery that, while may not be as fast overall, will feel more fun to use on everyday roads. And this is why we're seeing a range of more lower powered but appealing sport bikes hit the market recently. It seems to be where the consumer focus is too. People like knowing they can get more out of their new motorcycle and ride it for longer without being worn out. Those old crazy super sports definitely had their moment, and they look great on a poster, but to actually ride one is a bit of a nightmare. Do you really need 200 horsepower in a bike? Come on. They are uncomfortable, so powerful that you can barely get out of third gear, and while a loud bike is cool at first, think about having that loud noise behind your ear for over an hour. Not ideal. Bike makers are adapting to the times and are making their new machines less powerful and hopefully more enjoyable for people to ride for longer. And while that means that on paper they do make less power than ones of old, it should mean for a more enjoyable overall experience and a bike that is better for the environment. Although I do have to question what portion of the global pollution number that motorcycles contribute. I'm sure it's not a big one. I reckon they should be focusing on bigger polluters, like cruise liners. Did you know that the emissions from a single cruise ship per day is the same as over 13 million cars? I'm not sure if all that extra engineering in our 1000cc sport bikes is gonna have that big of an impact while there's polluters like that still out there. But hey, it is what it is, I suppose. I'll leave some links in the description if you want to read up more on the Euro emissions laws and what I've mentioned here in this video. Look, I think at the end of the day, it is a good thing to see our bikes getting more efficient and smarter. I just hope it doesn't get to the point where it outweighs the fun that we can have on them. Sometimes I get turned off by the idea of something being too smart with all of the electronic gizmos inside, and I just want it to be loud, dumb, fun. But that's just me. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. We can still, of course, currently equip them with aftermarket bits and bobs to make them loud and proud, but the trend does seem to be moving away from that. But that's it for today, guys. Thanks for watching, and until next time, see ya.